What if the fire never went out at Marineford? What if Ace lived and everything changed? Ace's death was, narratively speaking, a cruel crescendo, intended as the final tragedy in a war that exposed the cost of pride, family, and inherited sin. It wasn't just his death that scarred Luffy. It was what that death represented. The consequences of rage, the weight of legacy, and the irreversible tipping point of the old era into the new. To let Ace live is not just an act of mercy, it's a radical revision of how pain, legacy, and sacrifice shaped the world that we once knew. But before we rewrite the flames of fate, let's make one thing clear. This isn't just about saving Ace, it's about reshaping the world he left behind. A living Ace doesn't just walk away from Marineford, he carries with him the weight of a legacy denied, the trauma of survival, and the power to shift everything that comes next. This isn't a happy ending, it's a harder story. A story about living with pain because if Ace had lived, we wouldn't just be rewriting a moment, we'd be rewriting everything. Let's say this, Akainu's fist never lands. Ace, bloodied but free, finally listens. He turns, not to fight but to flee, pride screaming at him to stay, to fight back. But this time, he doesn't give in. He grabs Luffy, he runs. And when Akainu lunges, molten rage blazing behind him, it's Jinbei, or even Marco, or maybe both. Akainu's fist intercepted. At this point in time, either one of them would be able to withstand an attack from Akainu, but not without cost. However, this time around, Ace, he lives. Now, Whitebeard. Whitebeard still dies. The quake punches through the air one last time. He stands like a monument, dies on his feet. No scars on his back, a generation ends with a roar. Blackbeard? He still achieved his initial aim. And at this point, you might be asking what that was. It was no other than the Gura Gura no Mi. Shanks still walks in like a final punctuation mark and ends the war, stops the bleeding, pulls the plug on all the carnage. But Ace? Ace is carried out of Marineford. Burned, barely conscious, his grip on Luffy the only thing keeping him grounded. Yes, he's broken. Yes, he's haunted. But he's breathing, and that breath, that changes everything. Ace's survival doesn't just ripple across the battlefield. Word soon spreads to every bounty hunter, newspaper, and Denden Mushi broadcast. Because to the world government, this wasn't a rescue, this was a humiliation. Ace's survival is an embarrassment to the Marines. Not just a tactical failure, but a narrative collapse. Sengoku didn't just want to kill Ace, he wanted to make a statement. This was meant to be a spectacle. The son of the Pirate King shackled before the world, proof that bloodlines could be judged, inherited crimes punished, and justice paraded like a holy banner. But now, the symbol escaped. The story broke. When the warning fails, the world government doesn't admit defeat. They rewrite the aftermath. They intensify post-war doctrine, harsher crackdowns, mass pirate hunts, stricter bounties, expanded power to the celestial dragons. The world becomes less free, more afraid, and more desperate for the order the Marines claim to uphold. And at the center of it all, Akainu, the man who failed to finish the job. He still becomes Fleet Admiral, but now it's not just about justice, it's about proving something. Proving he's the hand of law the world needs, proving Ace should have died, proving that hesitation is weakness and mercy is treason. Under his command, justice doesn't just become absolute, it becomes unforgiving. Now, what's really interesting to me is that Ace's survival doesn't just change the dynamic, it sends ripples through the seas. Not just the Marines, but the pirates, the worst generation, the old legends, the dreamers and the devils. Because Ace doesn't return to a world that stayed the same. He changes it by surviving. Ace doesn't just survive Marineford, he emerges. A legend. The only man ever pulled from the execution platform of Marineford, a symbol, a miracle, a spark that defied fate. And that spark? To the worst generation, it's a call to arms. Proof that the old world can bleed, that the so-called balance of power isn't absolute. If Ace could be saved, maybe the world can be changed. To the survivors of Whitebeard's crew, it's bittersweet validation. Their father fell, but his son lived. His dream didn't die with him. Ace becomes a ghost that walks. Not just a survivor, but a symbol. A living challenge to marine justice. A reminder that legacy is not always destiny, and that inherited sin can be overcome. But symbols carry weight, and behind the cheers, behind the whispered legends, is a man. A man waking up to grief. Ace opens his eyes aboard a ship. Not a prisoner, but barely more than a corpse. He's wrapped in bandages. Burned, broken, and around him, silence. Whitebeard? He's dead. The crew is scattered, hollow. And Luffy is unconscious, scarred by a pain he wasn't ready to feel. Ace had made peace with dying. He wanted to protect his brother. If it meant his life, so be it. But now, he has to live with it. He wasn't supposed to make it, and every breath he takes feels borrowed, bought with the lives of others. He spirals. He died for me. They died for me. Sometimes it's a punishment, because surviving isn't always a gift. And now, the man who is ready to die has to learn how to live. And that's where the real story begins. Because Ace surviving doesn't just change him, it changes everyone. His brother, his enemies, and his executioner. To the ones who fought for him, and the ones who failed to kill him. Now let's pause for a second. This story's just one spark in a sea of what-ifs. So here's the question. What should we explore next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Character rewrites, alternate arcs, wild theories, whatever you've been burning to see. This channel isn't just about the story that was. It's about the stories that could have been. All right, back to it. Let's talk character dynamics. First, let's start off with Luffy. Ace's survival doesn't just change Luffy's grief, it transforms his drive. He still trains with Rayleigh, still disappears for 2 years. But now, he doesn't vanish to bury pain. He vanishes to build a future. It's no longer just about being strong enough to protect his crew. It's about being strong enough to protect the world Ace nearly died for. The people who stood for him, bled for him, died so that Luffy could live to fight another day. Luffy carries more than just scars now. He carries hope. A belief that strength is not for vengeance, but for restoration. And when they reunite post-time skip, it's not quiet, it's chaotic. It's Luffy launching himself through the air, screaming at full volume. It's Ace grinning through tears and calling him an idiot. It's fists pounding backs, voices cracking, laughter through bruised ribs. It's messy, raw, real, exactly like them. For Blackbeard, Ace's survival is a problem Blackbeard didn't plan for. Sure, he still gets the Yami Yami no Mi, still steals Whitebeard's Gura Gura no Mi. But now, he doesn't ascend uncontested. Ace knows him, knows the mask, the lies, the hunger, the void at the center of him. And that knowledge turns Blackbeard from a shadowy upstart into a marked man. Every time he rises, Ace is right there, chasing his footsteps, hunting him down. And this time, Ace isn't reckless. This time, he's not fighting for pride, he's fighting with purpose, with clarity, with restraint. And when their rematch comes, because it will, it won't be about vengeance, it'll be about justice, real justice. For Akainu, Ace's survival marks a stain on his legacy. He had one job, to extinguish the flame, to turn Portgas D. Ace into a symbol of marine justice. Instead, he let a legend live, and that drives him mad. Akainu becomes obsessed, not with order, but eradication. He chases Ace, hunts Luffy, tightens his grip on the seas. Justice twists into something darker, something colder. He still becomes Fleet Admiral, but now it's under a blood-red banner. And Aokiji? He doesn't just leave over a disagreement. He leaves because Akainu is slowly becoming a tyrant, a monster in uniform. And within the Marines themselves, whispers begin. Whispers of rebellion, of cracks forming in the walls. Because even justice, when pushed too far, starts to look like the very thing it fights. And all of it, the tyranny, the fear, the unrest, is because one man refused to die. Because one fire kept burning. Ace's death was a statement. But his survival, that would be a movement. A living Ace wouldn't just be a stronger pirate, he'd become a philosophical successor to Whitebeard. His existence would be a challenge to the status quo, to tyranny, to inherited sin, to the idea that you must pay for your father's crimes. Instead of a dead man's legacy, the world would reckon with a living fire, a man who finally chose what to do with the life he never thought he deserved.